All right, everyone. Welcome to another edition of KOIN Conversations. Todd Unger here, and I'm so pleased to be joined on what is kind of a cloudy and drizzly day here in Portland by Priya, who works down at OSU in the Extension office. And Priya, why don't you just tell everyone a little bit about what you do down there? If they couldn't guess already from your background, you're kind of a Christmas tree expert.
Yes, you are right. You're absolutely right there. I am the Christmas tree as specialist who covers the entire state, meaning any Christmas trees grown throughout the Oregon, I support the growers by addressing emerging problems, by doing research, designing experiments to see what's the best solution for the problems that they are facing. But I'm also an assistant professor in College of Forestry at OSU, so which means I get to graduate and mentor students too, alongside working with my stakeholders, which are mostly growers.
Sure, sure. Obviously, when you think about Christmas tree locations in the country that produce a lot, Oregon's top of mind. Washington, to some degree, North Carolina, I know, is the big producer on the East Coast. What is it kind of about Oregon that makes it such a hot spot? Is it just really the topography, just kind of the environment here?
Yep, you're right. You are right on spot there. It's the weather. So the conifers, the trees that we grow here as Christmas trees, they're adapted to milder weathers, like wetter winters and milder
Mhm.
summers, which makes them successful in this geographical region. So yeah, it's the weather.
The weather's the big factor. And I
Hmm.
actually grew up on a Christmas tree farm many years ago. And this is back in the late 80s, 90s. And I think our most expensive tree at the time were the Nobles. And Nobles went for about, I don't know, 25 or $30 tops back then. And now many of them are up toward 100 or over $100.
Yeah.
Um, what is it about? We can go through the different types of trees because I find it fascinating. But nobles have always, at least here in Oregon, kind of been the top tree, haven't they?
Yep, yep. And they are still popular.
Yeah. Why was that? Is it just the way that the kind of the tree was laid out? Why were they a little bit more expensive than anything else?
Yeah, Sonobel firs are native
Mm-hmm.
to Pacific Northwest, and the distribution is limited to the Cascades. And that being said, they're also beautiful the color, and
Sure.
they have softer needles like spruce. Blue spruce has good color too, but they're very pokey. So if you want to get color, softer needles, and strong branches, then you have to pick a noble. But also, noble is holds needles. The most
Right.
important issue that a lot of consumers have when they want to buy a real Christmas tree is they don't want to mess. So noble trees would be a good option because they hold their needles well. That's the reason they stay the most popular so far. And partly, I think, is also because what people grew up with. We grew a
Mm-hmm.
lot of nobles and they
Yeah.
grow well. They keep their needles well after they're harvested. They have a nice aroma, milder than some other species that we grow here, but they are beautiful. They have a nice form, shape, so they make a good Christmas tree.
Yeah, they do. And I think you're right. It's a little bit of how that particular farm trims and shears the tree. And if they're spaced out correctly, there's a lot more room for bigger ornaments, that type of thing.
Correct.
You mentioned blue spruce. When I was a kid, those were my favorite because they looked a little bit different. They were kind of like a noble, but as you said, a little bit sharper. We don't see quite as many of those here in Oregon, though, do we?
We don't, but if you, it depends on the farm that you're
Okay.
going to. Most of the wholesalers grow Noble and Douglas and
Hmm.
the other Eurasian or exotic species, but the blue spruce, Colorado blue spruce, if you go to choose and cut farms, you would see some blue spruces in choose and cut farms.
Right. Another big tree I remember so much growing up were the grands, kind of bushy and just kind of that traditional Christmas tree look, are they still pretty popular, or there's not as many of those?
There are a smaller percentage of the market because first, they're harder to grow, not because they don't grow well, they grow well, but they have a lot of insect issues,
Oh,
which
okay.
means the grower needs to put more inputs and to maintain
Sure.
those trees. But there are still few growers who grow granfers, and also they don't keep their needles well. As
Yeah.
well, it's all relative compared to noble granfers don't keep their needles well after they're harvested. So they are still around, smaller population, smaller percentage of the market.
I want to go into a little bit of the data here because you recently put out, OSU put out a little article just about kind of where the industry stands, I guess, as a whole. And for the year that the most recent data is still available, 2023, Oregon sold more than 3.1 Christmas trees. Definitely the top producer in the country. Do you think this industry is something that is growing?
I would say it's holding.
Yeah, yeah,
It's holding, but it's the number of farms have decreased, but the number of trees that have been produced are maintained because there are larger growers planting more trees.
right.
But there are still 300 licensed growers growing trees in Oregon. Couple of them, and the acreage is split. There we have larger growers who grow more than 400 acres, like 4 to 500
Sure.
acres, up to 4,000 acres. But we have a lot of smaller growers who operate retail and choose and cut farms who grow less than 200 acres, even 10 acres to 60 acres with a couple of thousand trees. So that the industry is faring well. I wouldn't say like it has gone up or down, but it's holding if you see the trends.
Where are most of our trees getting exported? I remember a few decades ago, Hawaii was big,
Mhm.
Southern California. Are those still places that are getting a lot of Oregon trees?
Yes, Southern California, Hawaii, Mexico,
Okay.
Canada are some of the countries that are neighboring and also within states. But we also export trees to this year we exported trees to Dubai, Singapore, Malaysia, excuse me, Japan, Maldives are some, and yeah, some of the other countries that we have exported trees this year.
And Canada, people might think, well, surely Canada has enough Christmas trees. But actually, I guess they don't.
They do. There is a Christmas Tree Association in Canada too. Mostly, I think it's concentrated in East Coast.
Okay.
Just to my knowledge, there might
Sure.
be others in the West Coast too, but they do grow some Christmas trees in British Columbia, but they're smaller growers.
Sure.
So it's always that additional supplement of trees that they would need from us.
How do you how is the environment and the climate changes we've seen impacting the larger industry? I know you mentioned in the article the 2021 wildfires we had across much of the state. Are there some long term ramifications there?
But not much with wildfires.
Hmm.
I haven't delved into that. And I also didn't hear a lot of concerns from growers about wildfire. There's one farm that got burned during wildfires,
Okay.
that to my knowledge, but I haven't heard much from growers. But seedling survival has become a challenging situation for growers to keep seedlings alive after they are transplanted into the field the first year because they need more cooler temperatures. A little wetter winters
Sure.
would be nicer for the seedlings to establish. But since we have a long dry spell, like sometimes growers
Hmm.
said, there are 100 days that we went without any rain or precipitation. So that that poses problems for seedlings to establish with no precipitation and long dry days. And most of the Christmas tree farms do not have infrastructure to irrigate,
Right.
but there are some growers who bring tankers with water and set up a drip irrigation and manually irrigate the seedlings. But there
Right.
are some smaller growers who go in their ATV or
Hmm.
gators and water, like manually water the seedlings. But some of the larger growers who grow more than 1,000 acres, it's a challenge for them to keep seedlings alive. But and another part of it is that seedling, but when they are mature, they get stressed out when there's drought or lesser precipitation and
Hmm.
excess heat. And stress trees attract a lot of problems like
Oh.
pests and diseases, so they become more susceptible. So that's the caveat, or with the drought and climate change. Those are the two more significant things that we are observing in the field. But with seedling survival, sorry, go
No,
ahead.
no, I was just going to say on the seedling front, we only had just under 10 acres, so it was a small mom and pop operation. But I do remember during some particularly bad summers, and this was early to mid 90s, so much more mild than even it is now. But my dad would, we had an industrial hose, and then you'd tie a couple others, and you'd be out there walking around, as far as you could get out in the fields trying to water because we didn't have an irrigation system for them at that point. So I do remember it being a problem even back then, and now I can only imagine it's exasperated.
Yeah, you're right about that.
When you think of the future of Christmas trees, it's not a tradition that's going away anytime soon in the United States or across the world. But when you look at the future of the industry, do you see fewer farms, larger operations, larger scale? Is that really the only way you think for some of these operations to continue and make any kind of money?
That's a very interesting question. I don't have expertise to give you a wholesome picture because it's multiple components that go
Sure.
into running an industry. There's a business component, there's a production component, but
Hmm.
I could talk from production
Yeah,
standpoint of
sure.
view. With the introduction of new species that we have, that is Turkish fir and Nordman fir. These are natives of Republic of Georgia and Turkey.
Hmm.
I think we have a chance for more seedling survival to elevate some of the problems that we're seeing with climate change.
Hmm.
So with the production side, we can alleviate some of the problems that we have uh, with seedling survival and species choice. But now coming to the consumer side, what do consumers prefer? If
Right.
they still want to have noble fur, then yes, maybe we can produce them. Maybe sites or farms that are on higher elevation are
Hmm.
more suitable for noble fur production, but maybe we'll have fewer of them. Maybe we have to pay a higher price because which means there's more input cost in maintaining trees that are stressed. But I think yeah, it all depends on the site and
Sure.
species, a combination of which site you have and which species you're growing.
And you mentioned the newer species for our area, the Turkish fir. Is that just because where they're originally from, they're just more drought resistant, a little bit sturdier?
Well, we haven't tested them, like we
Okay.
haven't pushed their limits
Right.
in a
Sure.
lab setting, in a controlled setting, but what's believed is that come from, they can tolerate a wider range of climate or weather patterns.
Sure. I got you. How'd you get into this? What was it about trees that kind of, I don't know, piqued your interest?
I got into agriculture side of research through emerald ash borer, if you know that insect.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
an invasive,
Mm-hmm.
and I was a grad student at Ohio State, so I was close to the ground zero, which is
Oh,
Michigan State,
right.
where EAB it does look very sad there. So I worked with invasive insects, and then I got an opportunity to work with invasive insects in Christmas trees in North Carolina.
Okay.
Excuse me. So there is another invasive scaled insect that affects freesia fir in North Carolina, making it unmarketable or a quarantine pest.
Okay.
I wouldn't say
Right.
unmarketable, but the trees are still, they look great,
Yeah.
unless because the growers there take care of the populations of the insect. But since it's an invasive insect, you cannot ship trees
Right.
across the country or different states. So that's how I got into Christmas trees, and this position showed up, and there's nothing better to work other than Christmas trees.
Yeah,
So I jumped
yeah,
onto it and I'm glad I did. I enjoy my work and helping growers here.
yeah. It is a fascinating industry and subculture because there is a subculture to it. To people who
Yeah,
want to spend their weekends for 8 to 10 weeks every holiday season, having strangers come over, but it's a lot of fun. And whether you've got a U-cut operation or whether you've got some massive operation, it is a lot of fun. And
it is.
there's something special about it, no question about that. What you mentioned, Michigan. Michigan used to do some trees, didn't they?
They do.
They
They
still
still
do.
do.
Okay, okay,
Yeah. Excuse me. They are the third largest
okay,
growers of Christmas trees,
okay, okay.
if you have to rank them.
Yeah. And so it goes Oregon, North Carolina, Michigan,
And Washington is the
and
fourth.
and Washington's fourth. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for giving us a few minutes today. It's just
Sure,
so,
sure.
I just love talking about trees, and there's here in Oregon, obviously the Christmas tree is kind of the top dog.
It is. And it's also the one of the top 20 agricultural commodities that are grown in Oregon. So for such a niche crop to be in the top 20
Is
crops
rare.
that are produced in Oregon is very rare.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Todd, for giving me an opportunity to share my excitement and interest working with Christmas trees.